Hey guys, I know shit's really hard right now. We not only are in isolation, but we also had a 5.7 earthquake yesterday, and then 24 hours of aftershocks. So, and our power was up for 15 of those 24 hours. So I'm in my studio today because I had a couple things that had to happen, and I thought I'd give you guys something fun to do at home that you don't need a lot of supplies for. So here is a tiny handmade gratitude journal. Enjoy. Okay, so this is the little gratitude journal that we're going to be making. You could use it for a million things. You could keep track of your, debit card transactions, your little grocery lists, anything in there. It's a really simple, quick book to make, and giving it a cardstock cover gives it a little bit of sturdiness. So let's get to this. So what you need first is a piece of letter size paper. The dimensions here are given for letter size paper. If you have A4, you can make some adjustments to the cover size, it'll still work. Okay, so first thing we need to make an accordion fold to fold this into thirds. So you could measure this, but trying to measure, like weird fractions of things is always problematic. So what I like to do is basically make a Z. So you've got a loop over here and a loop over here. It, all together makes kind of a Z fold. This is called an accordion fold in origami, actually in most folding techniques. But you kind of adjust it a little bit before you make any creases, so you can kind of get your edges where they need to be. Check it. Don't crease it too hard. Check it, see if it works. And honestly, like, that's close enough. It's not really like super precise here. I might adjust this just a little because I'm kind of a perfectionist, but don't feel the need to do this perfectly yourself. Okay, and if you're going to make a bunch of these, once you've got that third figured out, it's way easier to just fold everything else. So keeping all of these even, make sure everything's lined up, then you can just crease down this way. And if you don't have a bone folder, so this is a paper tool bone folder, it helps you make really like sharp creases. So you can see where I've run it over, it's actually really, really sharp. And then it gets like looser and more open up here, even though I totally creased it with my hand. So if you don't have one, you can use like a regular kitchen knife, and you can use the back side, I would say. Don't use the other parts yet, but you can use them to help you make a really, really nice, beautiful crease, okay? We'll keep using this kitchen knife because it's more likely that you have a kitchen knife than a bone folder, so let me set that aside. Okay, so from here, you're going to take the whole thing and fold it in half. And same thing with your knife or your bone folder. You're going to crease that fold, okay? And then we're going to fold it in half again. This one's going to be really thick. It's going to be a little harder to get the crease nice and clean, and it's going to be quite thick here. So because it's got, let's see, 6 sheets in that crease. So we're going to fold this, and this last crease that we just did, so you can see that the book, bump in my thing. You can see that the book here, this is going to be the spine, okay? So these are our pages. I have cut a piece of cardstock 3x7. So if you were going to like do this with kids, it would probably be a good idea for you to cut these for them. If you want to do a cover, you don't have to do a cover either way. But so I'm just going to fold this in half. And you can see that actually this goes beyond the edge of the book, and that's fine because what we're going to be doing is folding these back to give it a little sturdier edge and just taping it down with washi tape or clear, Scotch tape, because it gives just a little bit sturdier of an open edge. Okay, so now that we've got this, we're going to put our book spine into the fold in the cardstock, and you can see there's a little bit of overlap on each side. That gives us a little bit of protection for the pages. Okay, so from here you can use a couple of things. I have an awl. You might not have an awl. That's okay. If you have an ice pick, that'd probably work. Otherwise, you can use something like a really, like big needle. This is a big fat needle, and it's sharp. You need something that's sharp. Don't try to use pins. They're usually too thin. You want something, you know, that's sturdy like a needle. So I'm going to use this needle here. And what you do, if you have a cork, stick the needle into the cork. It'll make it easier to push down. So like here, I'm going to use this. I'm going to put a hole right here. This is probably about 1/3 of an inch in. And I'm using a squishy surface underneath. So like if you have, you could poke it into towels, you could poke it into foam. Like if you have kid craft foam, that would totally work. An awl is a little easier because it has a place to put your palm when you're pushing. So push down in that one hole. That's what the cork would be for if you were using the needle. You're gonna make basically 4 holes along this spine. And it doesn't really matter where they are. If you feel like measuring, measure. If you don't, don't. As long as they go through both the paper and the cover all the way. Okay, so now I have these 4 holes. They're also in my spine. And we're going to stitch it together. So, let's see. Let me cut a new piece. I like to use a waxed thread. If you don't have a waxed thread, you can just, you know, run it through a candle, honestly. Or like, you can do it without wax thread too, but a wax thread just is a little easier to tie crisp knots. So I'm going to thread my actual needle that I want to sew with. So something that will fit into those holes that I just made. Okay. So I've got, it's probably about, I think you need probably like 8 inches of thread. Okay, so we're gonna count this as hole 1, hole 2, hole 3, hole 4. Okay, so you're gonna go down into hole 1 from the inside toward the outside spine. Okay, and you're gonna leave yourself a tail, 3 to 4 inches, and then come in from the spine to the inside into hole 2, and then out hole 3, and in hole 4. Okay, now this is where we get a little tricky with some bookbinding knots. So you're going to take this needle end that you've got, thread it underneath this center thread. Okay, and you're going to make sure that this is pulled a little snug. This is when the wax comes in handy because you can see that the thread now kind of holds its shape where you pulled it. Okay, and then you're going to go up the same direction. So we went this direction through this thread. We're going to go up through this thread in this direction and kind of pull it in multiple ways till you get it snug. Okay, so that's one side is completely set. Take my needle off so I don't flop it around. And you can either thread your needle onto this end or you can do this without the needle, but you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go up underneath that center piece of thread and then loop around and go up underneath the piece that you just made. This is a little easier to do with the needle and also when my fingers aren't wrapped in bandages, but I'm having some thumb pain, so we're doing this. Okay, so up that same direction. Let me get this in place and then I'll make sure I show you. Okay, yeah, so we've gone up this way through the center and then looped around and underneath here and then up this way. So you can kind of hold this and snug it, pull it the other way, pull it this way. Everything's all snug in here. Okay, so your book is bound now. And then we're going to trim these threads. Any scissors will do. And at this point, usually I use my bone folder to flatten these knots. You can kind of just press them because they're on wax thread. You can also do that with the blunt side of your kitchen knife. Okay, all right, so we're almost there. This is our bound book, but we need to fold these back and then we need to separate the pages. So let me move my soft surface. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to give myself a little bit of space. Maybe, I think that's like an 1/8 of an inch. I'm just going to use the knife to kind of trace myself a little line there. It makes it easier to fold evenly across. Okay, so you could use a ruler for this if you want, or you can eyeball it. But I'm just going to give myself a little bit of space, fold those in. Okay, so again, crease this fold. Basically, every time you make a fold, if you want it to stay there, it should be creased. And then I'm going to take some washi tape. And I'm just gonna close this off. And then I'll do the same on the other side with another piece of washi. Make sure this is folded down and creased. And then tape it down. Okay, so there's our book, but we still have this problem where we have accordion folds inside. So how you do that? All right, for this big fat one where we folded the whole thing in half, sometimes you might, depending on the thickness of your paper, you might need an actual knife, but this is just copy paper, so the kitchen knife is working just fine. If you're using a thicker paper, I would really recommend that you use a sharper knife than a kitchen knife to get through these. And yeah, make sure that you get through all those layers. There we go. I kind of split in between two. All right. I went too fast and got a little extra here. That's fine. I'll just snip it off so it doesn't bother me. Okay. So now we only have the folds at the tops and the bottoms, and those are really easy to get out with the kitchen knife or a bone folder. So we're going to pull the first page and realize that it's stuck to the bottom, so we'll just go like this, holding it flat to make sure that we don't jump it like we did with the big one. So hold it flat, and you can start to separate these pages. There you go. And if you come across one that you forgot to separate, just separate it again. You know, pull a knife out of the kitchen drawer and separate it. So we're just gonna do this. And then the next one. There we go. So we'll hold it flat and just separate those two layers. And when you make a really sharp crease, it really gives a guide to where the bone folder or the little kitchen knife should, or little like dinner knife should fold or should cut. Sorry, a little spacey today. Okay. Did I get that one? Yeah, I got that one all the way. And then do this. So you can see that the more care you take with this, the better it'll be. I'm not in a great state of mind at the moment, so this is a little less than stellar, but okay. But when you're done, you've got this adorable little book, and this book could, hold a myriad of things. I made it originally as a piece from my my zine, my making zine, construction papers, with a legal size sheet, so it actually had more pages and was a little bit less wide. But I figured people would probably have letter size paper at home. So yeah, here's a cute little book. You could put stickers on the front. You could have your kids, if you have kids, draw stuff on the front. I think they're really fun little projects. You could, if you're trying to keep children busy, you could make a bunch of them, or have the kids help you make a bunch of them and have them write stories in the books and illustrate them. I think that would be really fun. Yeah, so there you go. We've got some adorable little gratitude journals. Thanks, guys. I hope you're all staying safe and staying well. And after today, I will be going back into my self-isolation and back into the office at some point next week. But I will see you guys on the interwebs. Bye!